Hello, everyone. What day are we at? We're Wednesday morning and we are going live today a little earlier than usual. We have been catching up, obviously, every Wednesday for our expert lives as part of the wonderful Mastella campaign, which is all around the fact that raising kids raises big questions, and it certainly does. And I'm so grateful that we have such a wonderful panel of experts to call on to help us navigate each and every one of the parenting stages. But more specifically with today's topic, we're really going to be talking about that fourth trimester or the newborn mother. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're 1, 2, 3 or more children deep. It is something that is so important, and I'm so excited that I'm going to be connecting Mandy from Wholesome Child, and I've just seen you there, Mandy, and a few others. Good morning, everyone. And Mandy and I are going to be chatting about how can we nourish that mama? And you might think automatically that we're talking about nutrition, but once we get to the end of this live, you'll see, Mandy's approach is so wonderful because it's so much more. Good morning, Mandy.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good, and you?
I'm very good. Well, I was running a bit late today, and because this is an earlier time slot, I was like one-handed pouring black coffee, flying through the kitchen and told everyone in the office I'm going live. So
You made it.
excuse me if my energy's a bit crazy this morning, but I know that you've had a big week because your son's doing his exams.
I know, at the age of 10, so they're getting used to being big and studying, and so I have to rush to fetch him at 12:30, so it's great for working mums. They come out at
Yes.
12:30 for the whole week. But
Wow.
it's good life skills, learning
Yes.
young how to basically study. I wish I'd learned it at such a young age.
I know. Well, that's so very true. It's getting earlier and earlier. I'm just finding it hard to keep up with the year one homework. So kudos to you.
Well, good news, it gets harder. So just enjoy the year one, because I literally, if you ever want to feel like you are not an expert in anything, have a 10-year-old, because I can't help him with science. I can't help him with maths, can't help him with languages. Like maybe they should have done Spanish at school. Then I could have contributed. But
Oh my
no,
gosh.
it's quite a humbling experience.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes, I'm just waiting for all the big questions to pop up. But I guess it all starts with, we're talking about how hectic our mornings and our weeks have been. And I think no matter what stage of parenthood you're at, looking after yourself is so important, because you're going to need to sustain the energy to be able to look after these gorgeous little people. But today, obviously, we're talking more specifically around, the new mama. And I think,
Yeah.
there's so many things out there about nourishing the mama and the first 40 days. And I know for me personally, I always treated that as a special time, because I knew that I didn't want a million visitors and I really wanted to focus on my little one. But obviously, when you're 2 and 3 children deep, and even sometimes the first time around, the first thing for me that was always slipping was looking after myself and nutrition, because I think it's very easy when you're tired to grab a piece of toast or to, grab something really quick and easy. And I know you have such wonderful recommendations on how to navigate that stage. I think, first of all, I'd love to hear, you work with a lot of people, and I'd
Yeah.
love to understand, I guess, what are these things that we're seeing, traditionally in that newborn phase or that fourth trimester with our new mums?
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting time, because obviously up until this stage, you've only ever had to really care for yourself, and suddenly you're given this new human being and you've got to keep them going. I remember being that new mum, and it was quite daunting on how to balance everything. So I think really what comes up is this huge amazing love, and you just see mums pouring everything into their baby and not really understanding that in our society, for example, like you're in hospital, so natural birth, you're 3 days, cesarean 5 days, you come out and that's it, you're ready to go. Our bodies have just gone through so much. For some women, it's not just the 9 months of being pregnant. For some people, the preconception journey is very intense. There may have been years of trying to conceive. So when we look at the whole emotional, physical, mental, spiritual journey, it's been intense. And now suddenly everything's thrown into this new person. And often a lot of mums just forget about themselves. And look, at the end of the day, if mom's not managing and, energy levels aren't up and feeling positive and equipped to deal with this new life, everything kind of goes downhill. So I always just say, stop and check in with yourself, because your body is wired to make sure that you're getting all the fuel you need, but it's not going to tell you what's the best form of that fuel. So we know
Yes.
when you're fatigued, when you're tired, all your body wants is glucose to keep your brain going, to keep your heart pumping. But we know getting that in the form of, for example, biscuits and cakes and white bread, it's almost like taking a car and just putting in the wrong fuel. It might go for a little bit, but it's going to have consequences, you know.
Yeah.
I actually have, kind of put in wrong fuel into my car in real life. So I understand that really is a thing.
Yes.
I'm getting better.
Yeah.
So, you know, we really need to just take stock of where we're at and understand that the body needs to heal. Okay. The body needs to heal. And if you're a breastfeeding mom, you still need to take in an extra 400 to 500 calories a day, and
Yes.
you are going to be depleted. It's like everything's going to your baby, and you need to keep on restoring, restocking. And even if you're not breastfeeding, the amount of strain and energy that goes into waking up every 2, 3, 4 hours to feed your baby, etc., it does take toll. So I always say, like, number one, the most important thing is it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Like, forget about celebrities and all these amazing women on Instagram who, after they've had birth, they look like they've never given birth. That's not real. You need to focus on health. Prioritize what's going to make you feel good, and understand that your body will get back into flow. But the first thing is making sure that you're focusing on health and those energy stores, and not getting too caught up in anything faddish, anything that's going to deplete you further. You want to eat nutrient-dense foods that are not only going to empower your body, but are also going to give your baby, if you're breastfeeding, the best form of nutrients possible. So, you know, there's a lot to deal with as a new mum, because society sometimes pressurizes us, and we forget that it's actually about health and how much we are taking on. So yeah, I'm happy to share like some of my tips with you, you know, on what.
Yeah, and I think you're so right. I think the bouncing back thing, because I remember actually, and I usually get to a certain point in the day. You and I have spoken about fasting before.
Yeah.
And I had to I thought, oh, this is great. I've been so busy with the baby, I haven't eaten, and I guess this is just like a semi form of fasting. But I was like, hang on a minute, wake up to yourself.
Yeah.
This is not okay. You need to recover and you need to restore. And I always relate it back to when you're feeling sick or you've got the flu and you crave either home cooked food or you crave chicken soup or whatever it might be, your body tells you what you need. And I think sometimes when we are caught up with baby or we are overtired, we forget to listen to our body, and we just go for convenience, or we're so caught up in caring for this precious little baby. We're getting so many amazing comments already, Mandy, which I'll touch on in a minute. I agree, Mandy is amazing. That's why we've got her here.
I just want to touch on one of those points you've said. So, as our bodies, the main thing that our body wants to do is survive, right? So if we're tired and we're fatigued, we're not listening to those subtle cues, after fasting, after skipping meals, suddenly your body's going to go, boom, I need sugar, I need energy. And that's when those sugar cravings hit hard. So you might have gone the whole day being focused on baby, and suddenly you're going to, like, your energy levels are going to plummet. You might feel nauseous. You might suddenly have this huge craving for 3 bowls of ice cream. So that's the way the body rebounds. So what we actually want to do is, I guess, in the stage of being so preoccupied with baby and not being focused on what our baby needs, on what our bodies need, that's when we need to go into robot mode and say, okay, I need 3 meals and 2 snacks, and actually keep checking in with yourself, taking a moment. If you can't actually physically check in with yourself and feel those hunger cues, because sometimes it's just so exciting, so much, we're so tired, just know, okay, 8 a.m., I need to put something in my mouth, even if I'm not hungry. Put in an egg, bit of porridge, just something. And and I guess one of the things that I see with families later on, so often parents will come to me when they're starting the solids journey, or after, say, at 8 months, if the solids journey is not going so well, or later on at about 16 months. And one of the things that I really work on with parents, that without changing anything nutritionally makes the biggest difference, that is structure. So having structures around meal times, and with children, very interestingly, or with toddlers, often by just changing meal time. So for example, bringing dinner forward and not going through those sugar like imbalances where a toddler just wants to snack. We just change the whole structure of the meal times and suddenly everything starts going smoother. And so if we come back to ourselves and if we are able to set that structure with ourselves, it will then carry on into our babies and our toddlers. But if we don't have structure and we don't have regular meals for ourselves, very hard to role model that for our babies and toddlers and school children later on.
Absolutely. I can so relate to that because I, been working long hours, picked the kids up late, and I had my mum come to help me out. And the first thing she said was, I'm going to make sure that they're getting picked up earlier. We're eating dinner earlier, because what was happening is they were coming in, grabbing bananas, grabbing apples, filling up on, fruit, and then not eating dinner. And I couldn't help but think the fact that, Sabir is a bit notorious for coming home and picking in the fridge. What can I pick? Snack. But they're watching all of this. And I think, yeah, I love this idea of in these early stages or whenever, I mean, looking at the health of the family, it's about what you are setting up for yourself will then benefit you later on in life when you do have, solids being introduced, and picky toddlers that mimic everything that you do.
And the beautiful thing, sorry, just to go on that point, just one more thing is that I often meet adults who've been struggling with their weight. They've been struggling with their dieting. They've been on this yo-yo. When you have a baby, it's the perfect opportunity to reframe how you see your body and its purpose, and also take stock of what do you want going forward. So I always say, I work with a lot of childcares, etc., and I always say we see the child actually as the cornerstone of building up this healthy new way of being in the family. So babies are sometimes an impetus to get healthy, and it's got the right focus, because it's not just all about what I look like, am I going to diet. It's actually about when you focused on building a little resilient, healthy eater, and you don't want them to go through all the stuff that you've gone through, or friends have gone through, or you see, teenage girls going through. You want to kind of get it right in the beginning. And I think that's a great motivation.
Absolutely. And I always think there is so many significant changes that happen when you have a baby. So I completely agree. I certainly felt that my approach to eating and dieting definitely changed when I had kids, because it was almost like you had no choice but to acknowledge and honor everything that your body has just gone through. And you want to be healthy for them and being able to keep up with their demands. And even things like sleep, you can't. I'm notorious for being on my laptop until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes, but then you think, oh, I've got to wake up for a baby. So it really is taking stock in those early days and going to bed early, drinking lots of water, putting those meals in place. And yeah, I've definitely seen a difference. But going back to what you said about the structured meal times, because I love that idea. And I think if you can train yourself to have a healthy breakfast. So obviously you were saying, say 8 o'clock, for example, what are we looking at? What are the great ways that we can fuel our body with enough sustenance to get us through?
Okay, so the number one thing when we're looking at any meal or what we're putting in our body is, again, you don't have to go and get rid of dairy and gluten and become keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian. You just need to focus on quality food. So for example, a breakfast, some form of whole grain, which would be oats or whole, I love spelt sourdough bread. It can be wholemeal sourdough, but you just want to start your day. If you're going to go for any grains, whole grains. And then you want a little bit of protein. So obviously eggs. I mean, eggs are literally like a multivitamin. One egg, it's got your B vitamins. It's got so many nutrients. So an egg. If you're somebody, I love smoothies, and I used to love smoothies because you could make a big batch. You could take it on the go if you're dropping a little one at school and you had a baby. You didn't have to have it all. You could leave it in the fridge. So then maybe 45 minutes later, come back and have some more if you want to. So I love smoothies. But again, if you are breastfeeding, you always have to go for a breastfeeding friendly protein powder. And there's not many out on the market, but yeah, I've got some exciting things happening. But really, you need to be careful when you're breastfeeding what you're putting into your body. If you are not breastfeeding, again, it doesn't really matter. But I would still urge you, there are a lot of, for example, protein powders on the market that are just filled with sugars, and the protein itself is not a good quality one. So you just want to always learn to read labels. Make sure you're getting a good protein powder with a lot of other cofactors in it, which is going to help your body to utilize the protein and has other benefits. Good quality yogurt, Greek yogurt. I love sheep's and goat's milk yogurt, but any good quality yogurt, plenty, you know, some fruit for fiber. Honestly, in those early days, like, let's forget an acai berry bowl. Let's forget anything that looks pretty. It's just what's easy. If it is a wholemeal sourdough piece of toast and an unsalted butter, and that's your breakfast, it's still better than having nothing, and there's still lots of nutrients. So, you know, go for your staples, go for those easy meals, but just make sure they're quality. So a supermarket bread, for example, numbers in it, preservatives, lots of added gluten. Go for a good quality bread. And even if you've just got time to toast a piece of bread and put a layer of butter, if it's good quality, still going to make a difference. And then later on, you can come back and, you know, make an egg or something like that. Or even just, like I said before, a tub of yogurt with some blueberries. No prep time, but you're putting some fuel into your body. And when you are at those early stages, and you, like, if you are breastfeeding, remember your body needs around 500 calories more each and every day. So I would say breakfast at 8. However, if you've been up from 6 a.m. and you're already on your second feed by 8 a.m., you may need to bring breakfast forward. So work within, I would say, eat breakfast around half an hour to 45 minutes after you've gotten up. Maximum, because if you've just been breastfeeding, your body's depleted. You need to put something back in. And the one thing that, you know, you can't look past is fluid. So you want to hydrate in the morning as well. Now, unfortunately, I know caffeine makes so many people feel so good.
I know, here I am saying I ran in and the first thing I put in is a black coffee.
I know. But unfortunately, sometimes our babies don't love coffee. So if you do have coffee and then you go to breastfeed and then you notice your baby's getting irritable or pulling up their legs, you know caffeine is having some kind of impact on them. So you really do need to, I'm sorry to say this, but watch your caffeine if you are breastfeeding. If you're not breastfeeding, you still need to watch your caffeine, because caffeine is a very, basically it hides what our body's really needing. So when you take caffeine, it suppresses your appetite and gives you a rush of energy, also spikes your adrenals, etc. So if you're going from coffee to coffee, you're going to slump, and then you're not going to understand why suddenly comes 5 p.m. and you're just a mess and you're crying and you're emotional. If you think about a kid who has not had food, and look, I've literally got scar memories in my brain thinking about my children when they are hangry. Like, it's terrifying. Like, my son goes from being literally normal to being a monster. And
they get this ragey look. I know when I can tell the minute I pick my daughter up from after school care, when I know I open her lunchbox and her morning tea, I know when I'm going to find it still full, because she looks really irritated and on edge. And isn't it so true?
And that happens to us as well. So we need to be aware. If suddenly, like, you haven't had a proper meal and you've got this baby and you've been isolated at home and you're suddenly feeling teary, you know what? Sit down and go and have a good meal, something very grounding, a big casserole, a meat stew, and then see how you feel afterwards. Because I'm not saying always, and we can't take away from the emotional things and hormones, you know, but sometimes we can be the best version of ourselves. We can't always fix everything and change everything, but we can feel more grounded and more able to deal with what we're being presented when we are really nourishing ourselves properly.
Absolutely. And I love that you touch on, you know, the breastfeeding, bottle feeding, no matter what it is. But I know that, you know, we spend so much time in that chair, and it almost is that the build up to the end of the day, that fussy period, you know, we've got the baby attached to us all the time. So I can imagine that if you haven't done the right thing in the morning, you haven't had those meals, and you've been feeding off coffee or whatever unhealthy snacks, that if you're going to get teary and emotional, you've got this clingy baby, it would be a snowball effect.
Absolutely. Sensory systems are all out of whack. And the other thing is, when we see a lot of issues that happen with adults and eating, we often find that evenings are so tricky and so difficult. The reason for that is, if you haven't eaten the whole day, that's when you overeat. That's when suddenly all the unhealthy food comes out. But if, and it's just such similar advice, I'm just thinking in my mind, because I often say to parents, dinner is the trickiest meal of the day. Everyone's sensory system is out of whack, and it's not always the best meal to go for perfection. It's actually the last meal to go for perfection. But if you've had breakfast, if you've had your mid-morning snack, if you've had a healthy lunch, you've had a good quality mid-afternoon snack, doesn't really matter if that dinner is smaller, or you're going to actually not be craving all the sugary foods as much, and you're going to just feel more in control and not feel, if we haven't fed our bodies the whole day and we get to that dinner time, suddenly we're out of control because we're ravenous. We may not have picked up on the hunger cues all the way through the day, but suddenly it's like, what can I eat? I'm starving. And if you are breastfeeding, oh my Lord, and that hunger sets in, you are out of control, because your body's like, I need food, move out of my way, just shovel it in. We don't want to get to that stage. And that's why if we can be just mindful about the snacks. So what I always say, aim for 3 meals and 2 snacks. And when you're breastfeeding, you can even go up to 3 snacks. So every 2 to 3 hours, make sure that you're focusing on healthy proteins, whole grains, healthy fats. And the other thing, and I know that, you know, not everyone wants to hear this, but vegetables. We need 5 to 7 serves of veg. When we are like, at this stage, we need the fiber, we need the antioxidants, we need to repair our body. So focusing on veggies. So even if you don't have a lot of time, make a big salad on Monday and it will last until Wednesday. You don't have to prep veggies every single day. Just make a big batch. And you know what? That's when you get the partner involved. You don't want to peel the carrots. Get your partner to, you got the baby, okay? If you like, you know, hopefully you're sharing roles and responsibilities. But you know what? Give them, let your partner do the veggie prepping.
To do something. Or even visitors, like when you were saying about the good bread, if they ask, is there anything they can get? Yeah, go down to that really nice bakery and buy me a loaf of bread. Bring that around. Or even a hamper of fresh fruit and vegetables. You know, we don't always think about that, but it's a lot more, I guess it's a lot more beneficial than bringing around chocolate cake, you know. Well,
even though I'm not saying no to chocolate cake, I'm just saying a bit of balance.
A bit of balance. But it's so very true. And I think with the snacks, and I'm going back to what you said about those eggs, because I've been feeling guilty with lunch boxes and things, and I do it now for myself, is having hard boiled eggs. I've got a great little machine. I just do a whole batch of them, have them in the fridge so that I know I'm hungry or I need to reach for something that is there and I'm getting that protein. And I always love your bliss balls and your seed bars or your muesli bars. I think they're fabulous. Just to have things like that on hand, ready to go in the fridge, can make such a difference.
Absolutely. And all of those things can be prepped. I mean, I know that in my Introducing Solids course, I also have a big section for mums with lactation cookies. And I've got a 7-day meal planner for mums after, you know, Bubs has been born in that 4th trimester. But although I do like to have home cooked things available, I remember when in those early days when I was breastfeeding, and I was probably breastfeeding like every 2 hours. My son, my God, he was a monster. He was a milk monster.
A baby monster.
He didn't lose weight. You know, when I was in hospital, he came out, he put on weight. Okay. Anyway. So I just remember the thing that really helped me out was I had staples, okay? I was not in the mood for cooking. So, no, I wasn't making, and I'm talking about like those first few weeks. So what did I have in my pantry? I had cans of chickpeas. But again, you know, I had good quality chickpeas. I had tuna fish. I had canned salmon, had canned sardines. I know no one besides me probably would eat them, but I had canned sardines.
In the kitchen. Sorry to cut you off. I saw someone eating them in the kitchen here the other day.
Very healthy.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Okay, so best thing to start your bubs on for solids. Trust me, I know you think sardines. Babies at 6 months don't know any better, and the little bones are so high in calcium, and you got all your omega-3s. So when I had no time, I'd have that, mix it with hummus and whole grain crackers. I really want to get across the fact that to eat healthy and have healthy things, like you said, it's boiled eggs, good quality cheeses, good quality bread. It's not, you don't have to spend hours and hours prepping in a kitchen. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's just going back to staples, but knowing how to choose those staples.
Absolutely. And I've actually been doing a bit of a concoction. And again, I was thinking about our chat and I thought, this would have been good actually back in the day. I've been doing the same thing, you know, the quinoas or the brown rices or the couscouses, and then throwing in a spoonful of hummus and then having the greens or the leaves. You know, the supermarkets do those wonderful mixed bags of shredded beetroot and carrot and broccoli. Chickpeas, like you're saying, corn. I do put a corn sometimes in there as well. But it literally takes 2 seconds to throw it all together, and you feel so great. A tin of tuna, sorry, that's what I missed in
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
conversation.
And you know, Em, as well, a lot of people don't know that you can freeze, make a big batch of rice and actually freeze it into portions so you don't have to make your rice every day. Same with quinoa, same with pasta. But now that we're going into this cold weather, so anyone who's watching in Sydney, it's cold.
Yeah.
Although when I dropped my daughter off at school today, I saw someone in a little kid in shorts and a t-shirt, and I was like, how? Anyway,
How?
thick skin, thick skin. I'm
Yes.
working on it.
Or a very
But
strong personality that they
or
couldn't.
I think you're on the money there. But because it is so cold, I really think moving into soups. Now, soup may take like big batches of soups. If you get a good quality bone broth, and the good news is when I wrote my wholesome child book, I remember everyone was making their own bone broth. We were going to get our bones and we were doing it for 14 hours. And
Wow.
now you can go to the supermarket and you can get a good quality bone broth. So for those of you that are watching and you like, I'm not making a bone broth, you can actually get them from the supermarket. So you've got a good base, a broth, chicken, bone, etc. And then you just throw all your leftover veggies in and, you know, maybe a full chicken, etc. Make yourself a big soup. That's going to last you for 4 or 5 days. You know, these are the kind of prep tips we need to think in those early weeks. You're not going to have time to be in the kitchen, and you're not going to want to be in the kitchen. It's going to be like so think about meals that you can really stretch and that are going to nourish you at the same time. And that's also when you start to speak to family members. If you're lucky enough to have a mom, a mother-in-law, you know, and if they say, instead of when they say, is there anything I can do for you? You know, we're always thinking about the baby. I remember I was very attached to my baby, and it was like, oh, no, I don't want to. I was just very like, so I would think, what can you do? No, it's fine. I don't need help. But in hindsight, it's like, yes, actually, can you make a big pot of stew or soup? Like, so start to focus on the things that you actually don't want to be doing, because as a new mom, sometimes we want to be with our baby. We just don't want to do the housework. We don't want to do the cooking. We don't want to be thinking about other people's meals. So if you've got, or friends, or, you know, a family member that is offering help, think about maybe cooking a meal for the family.
And people want to help. People want to, if the minute you ask, I'm really bad at asking for help, mind you. So for anyone watching that knows me going, yeah, well, Abby's never asked. But I think people do. They want to feel like they're being able to contribute in some way. And if that is making up a big batch of a nutritious meal, I mean, or even set that up beforehand. I mean, do you do a lot of, I know that everyone talks about meal prep before baby.
Yes.
You know, how important do you think that is for those first few weeks?
So, look, it depends on every family. Now there are some families where, say, you have a woman who is providing meals for other family members. So if the mum's providing meals for family members, and especially usually it happens if you've got 2 or 3 other children. So with my first, I didn't do any meal prep. But when summer came around, my second, all I could think, and, you know, I was like really wholesome with Aaron. I made batches of black bean brownies. I made batches of all the recipes from my book, and I was super prepared. But that's just because I wanted to make sure that Aaron had food. If it's your first baby, I guess, and you've got a partner, it's really about discussing it beforehand and talking about shared responsibilities and seeing how much support you are going to have. And if there isn't that support coming through, then that's when I would be saying making big stews, making big batches of soup. If you love, say, tuna lasagna, instead of when you make one, keep doubling it, just so you've got a whole batch of things. Also get to know your way around. So change some of your habits that are going to make your life easier. Online shopping. I hated online shopping because I wanted to go physically and choose what I was getting. But you know what? Sometimes life necessitates that we become flexible and we change our routine. So go on to online stores, go on to Woolworths, Coles, see, you know, where am I going to do my online shopping, and start to kind of have a bit of a game plan, because you're not going to want to go trawling around a supermarket with, I didn't, you know.
or it's when you're finally at that point where you can leave baby and it's like a holiday. You go down and you listen, you appreciate the music in the aisles. You're like, this is amazing.
I know. But if you're doing online shopping, you can go meet your girlfriends for a coffee, or go to a Pilates class, or go down to, I don't know, just do something fun. Go see a movie instead of going to do the shopping, because you've organized it and it's all been ordered.
organized. And actually, touching on organization, someone who you and I both know, Anita from Mise en Place, I know that, you know, she's written content for us before for the app, and she's been talking about, you know, we're in that nesting period. We're always thinking about setting up the nursery, when in fact, look at the fridge, look at the pantry, have
Absolutely.
this set up beforehand, because if people do want to come in and help, it needs to be organized so they can.
Yeah.
But also for yourself, because your habits will change. And I always think back, I was like, when I had a baby, it was the most I'd ever cooked, and, you know, really got in the kitchen and enjoyed it. And I thought, how did I not find the time prior to baby? I've now got a baby, but you want to do it. It's a different, there's a different purpose.
And that is the best advice, I guess. You know, Anita's always got amazing advice, but really focusing on the pantry and the fridge, because I know so often we have sauces that have like gone out of date 8 months ago, and I'm gonna be like, my fridge is so full, get rid of everything. If you haven't eaten it in the last couple of weeks, you're not going to use it. Go through your pantry, because when baby comes, you just don't want clutter around. You don't want to have to think. You want to be able to just know what you've got when you're hungry. You don't want to be like trawling through your pantry and finding half open packets of things. So getting organized, and also just making sure that you've got the necessary equipment in your kitchen as well. There are a lot of people that just get by, and, you know, they're like, oh, a handheld blender would help me so much now, or a KitchenAid would be so useful. Or you're going to need these things when comes time to introducing solids to your baby. So why not just do it for yourself to make your life a little bit easier, and just take stock of what you need. Make sure that you've got ample storage, so that you've got a kitchen and a freezer, because when it comes time to introducing solids to your baby, you are going to be having a lot of fresh produce in your fridge, and you will, I mean, my main advice when it comes to solids is batch cooking. So you need to just make sure, and you know, and I guess before baby comes, it really is the time to take stock of everything and make sure that you're kind of prepared, because you don't want to be running around and having to hassle about this when baby's arrived and you realize that life's changed.
Yeah, and I can tell you that introducing solids, we're talking about that for new mamas, that you'll blink and all of a sudden you'll be ready to introduce. That first 3-4 months goes so quickly. And I think, I just love doing something that will benefit you. You know, they always say to do something now that will help your future self. So it's like, what can I do today that's going to help me tomorrow? And I feel like you've got that time pre-baby to really get stuck in and look at your processes and your routines and your systems, and make sure that they're working for you. And if they're not, fix it right then and there. And that leads me to, I guess, the fact that, you know, looking after yourself and self-care is much more than just nutrition. And we haven't yet spoken about hydration for breastfeeding, which someone made a comment on here as well. But, you know, you were talking to me about the fact that it's about much more than just what you put in your body. Can you tell us a little bit, I guess, about that?
Yeah. So, you know, when we look at nutrition, and especially because I deal with children, I always see what you put in your mouth is actually the end product. But it doesn't start there. It actually starts with how we perceive ourselves, what thoughts we put into our mind, and how we take care of ourselves. So I do also see situations where new mums become too focused on what they're putting in their mouth. And, you know, there's a whole other range of self-care, like just taking time to go into a room, 5 minutes meditation, going to walk barefoot on grass, going to the beach in summer, just talking to a friend, like nourishment of family and friends in those first few weeks. This is true nourishment. Like, we can't just think of nourishment from food. We've got to look at our whole life and make sure that we are being nourished externally from the special people in our lives, our partner, family, our friends, but also how are we nourishing ourselves? Because if we are, you know, not thinking nice thoughts about ourselves, and if we are looking in the mirror and thinking, oh my God, my body, this, and that, you know, it doesn't matter what food you put in your mouth, it's still not going to truly nourish the soul and nourish your mind. So I really like to, when I deal with children, I never just say I'm a nutritionist. I'm actually a behavioral feeding specialist. And very often when it comes to changing strategies in the home, there are times where I have to first work on a parent and change language and change potentially what they are, you know, what their child's perceiving, how they feeling about themselves. And then other times I have to just purely work on the behavior in the family, changing the cortisol levels, the adrenaline around meal times, what the what the desired outcome for a parent when they come to see me may be very different to afterwards when they've spoken to me, to realize. And it's the same thing for us as mums and also as women. Nourishment and nutrition, it really needs to be holistic, and it needs to encompass a lot more than just what we eat.
Absolutely. And, getting out and moving as well. So the sun is actually chasing me in the office. It's hilarious. I have to keep moving the camera. It's beautiful. Look at this, the winter sun. It's so lovely. But also too, I think, taking that time to get out into the fresh air. You were saying earlier about how, sometimes we're stuck in the house all day. We're having one of those days, but I can imagine just getting out with the pram and walking around the block, if we can, of course. There are so many other things that. Yeah, sorry.
I remember for myself, I was always, physical exercise has always been very important to me. A lot of people don't know, but I actually started out as a personal trainer when I was very young, like 18. But so exercise has always been important to me, but I like to do things now because I'm a single mom and because I'm busy. And even when I had my baby, the best form of exercise for me, and it's real nourishment, is taking my pram and walking and going for a walk with my best friend. Yeah. After an hour's walk where we're in the same headspace, talking, chatting, coming back, it was as if I just had a 5-course meal and was just so full, and just kind of that connection. And also making exercise not something you have to do, but making it more incidental. Like baby needs to sleep, you want to get some fresh air, you want to meet up with a friend, instead of going for a coffee, let's go for a walk. And it just makes it a lot more manageable.
Absolutely. And filling your cup, which is so important when we talk about self-care. Self-care doesn't need to be a bubble bath, which is sometimes.
Exactly. And there's something else, looking at having friends, is if you do have a close friend that's had a baby at the same time as you, and if you do have similar, kind of nutritional habits, share the load. Like, you make a tuna lasagna, I'll make a beef casserole, and let's halve it. And that can also help so share it with your friends. I did that with my best friend. We did that for ourselves, but then when it came to introducing solids, it was easy because we lived in the same apartment block, so we literally had to go up and down stairs. But sharing the load, so I was cooking 2 to 3 times a week, and I was ending up with 6 to 7 meals a week.
That is amazing. It's this whole village concept, isn't it? Which has changed, but it's about finding what that looks like today. And Absolutely. If you don't have, I had no friends that were at the same stage as me, and I didn't have anyone around me, but I did have a husband that forced me to go to Mother's Group, and I've since made, a dozen beautiful friends, lifelong friends from that. But that was something that never came up, and now I'm thinking that would have been an amazing idea. We could have had like this potluck kind of situation where everyone cooks something and we, all contribute. What a great idea. I love that.
It made the world of difference. And like you said, the woman that I met I went to a Mother's Group. I didn't know anyone. And now 10 years later, it's like lifelong friends. So
that is so amazing.
We need to push ourselves, because a lot of people here, they don't have family. I didn't have a lot of friends around at that time. I'd been living in the UK. I was very isolated. But, sometimes we just take that step, and it's very good stage of life to actually make some real precious friends. Both of my best friends that I have both met at each pregnancy. So I think it's brilliant. It's a perfect time to reach out to other women. You're in the same boat and you have about as much knowledge as each other, because you've never done it before if it's your first, and sharing what you can. And I'd say share the food. It just shares the load.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, because I know that we've covered so much juicy stuff, hydration, which I know is important. My mum knows that I'm very naughty when it comes to hydration, and she actually bought me this fancy bottle that lights up spontaneously when I haven't drunk enough water. And at first I thought, why would I need this? But then I realized, actually, I can go for a very long time without doing it. I mean, what are we talking? Like, how much should we be having? I guess breastfeeding, you require a lot more. Are there any hacks?
Yeah. So yes, again, don't wait for your body to tell you that it's thirsty, because you're not always, often when you sit down and breastfeed, you will feel thirsty. So having little things like sit down to breastfeed, always have a jug of water next to you, but also know that sometimes we think we're hungry, but we're actually thirsty. So we actually need to make sure that we are keeping hydrated. So we want to be drinking over 2 liters of water a day. When we breastfeeding, we increase that. But what always used to work for me is having a big jug of water and cutting up. So every day I'd change. I'd have lemon in it, oranges. Sometimes I'd put strawberries, kiwi fruit. And that way, when I open the fridge, I just would always see it. If you don't like cold water, you can leave a jug of water out of the fridge. Not really with the fruit for too long. But if you've got a 2-liter container, and keep drinking from that one, because that way you won't be able to kid yourself. Sometimes, especially when we have baby brain, we forget how much water we've drunk. But if you
forget what side you breastfeed on, let alone how much water
you forget who you are. You forget what day of the week it is. It's like,
So
the only problem is that when you have a baby, you can always blame it on baby brain. And what do you do when you've got a 10-year-old and you still got baby brain? I don't know what you blame it on. Anyway,
you're a working mama too.
So I always say have a big jug and fill it up, and so that way you know how much water you're having. And just, if you're breastfeeding, just know, sit down before you start breastfeeding, have that water within reach, and make an effort to make sure you drink a glass of water with each breastfeed, because you're not always going to know that you're thirsty. It's the same thing about hunger. So we need to make it mechanical and robotic, that we know every day we need to make sure we drink. And I do like to wake up first thing in the morning and have 1 to 2 glasses of water. So at least you've gotten that in before the coffee. Please, before the coffee.
That's something the water is a big thing in our family. And I love what you said, actually, because that's so true about sometimes they're not hungry, they're thirsty. And I've tried to do that with my own kids, to say, have a big drink of water first.
Yeah.
I'm hungry, have a big drink of water first. Because chances are they get distracted at school and they don't have enough. So if you can train that behavior with yourself, and, then when
also fatigue. If you are feeling very fatigued, it could be a sign of thirst and of hunger. Sometimes our body doesn't express it as, oh, wow, I'm thirsty, or I'm really hungry. Sometimes we just feel so if we were very thirsty and we were becoming dehydrated, we'd actually feel quite foggy. Our mental faculties would start to diminish, and could be fatigue, feeling a bit dizzy. Drink, go and have something to eat. Blood sugar levels, hydrate. Make sure that we are, on top of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. Mandy, you are always loaded with so much useful advice and game-changing tips. And I know we had some beautiful comments on here. And I hope that we covered everyone's questions. I'm doing a quick scroll. Yeah, about the hydration fluid, and how wonderful you are. Yes, she is. Thank you so much, Mandy. We will be sharing this to our feed. For those that joined us during the live, thank you so much. But we always post this afterwards to make sure that you can revisit it. Mandy, of course, is a wealth of knowledge. She has books, she has courses. Follow her on Insta if you are joining this from our page, and vice versa. We have wonderful content from Mandy in our app, which we love. And finally, I must say, Mandy was part of our campaign with Mustela for the Raising Kids Raises Big Questions. And that's why we wanted to call on our experts to really help find the answers, because it is about supporting each other. And it's not just about one way of doing things. There are so many different things, aren't there, Mandy? It's, so many different.
Absolutely. There is no one right way. But you know what? We are here. We need to support each other. We're all in this journey together, and we can all learn from each other. We never, ever stop learning from each other.
So true. You and I are always messaging each other and feeling the same vibes now that I get older. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mandy. I hope your son goes really well in his exams.
Thank you.
I'm proud of his efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone that joined us for the live. I can't wait to share this to the feed, because I know it's going to add a lot of value for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Emmy. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.